My name is Jill Coyle, and from years of experience as a divorce attorney, I know for a fact that no one dies from divorce. The experts and I are here to show you how to not only survive, but thrive during the most difficult times. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce podcast. My name is Jill Coyle, and I am the leading expert on divorce, bringing all things to you to help you not only thrive and survive your divorce, but give you the latest and greatest information to really help you understand what you need to do to protect yourself, your future, and your family. And today we have an amazing guest, Dr. Morgan Anderson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I love the title of your show, by the way. No One Dies from Divorce.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. It's interesting because we've had a lot of kind of like a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of feedback of like, well, people do die from divorce. And I'm always very, very cautious to let people know that the divorce doesn't kill you. Mental health kills you. Other people kill you. And so we talk a lot about that, about how the divorce doesn't have to be the thing that ends it, and that it can actually be the platform to lead you to a better and stronger life. And so when I get those naysayers that are like, I don't like your name, because I'm like, no, let's talk about it. So
ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously divorce, with being one of the like most prevalent things that happens in the United States, more people will be affected by a divorce than anything. We need to stop using it as a shameful subject, and we need to start using it as an opportunity to become better people. What better thing to bring people to a better race, a better humanity, than a trial that makes you want to be better, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let me introduce Dr. Morgan. She is a relationship coach, attachment theory expert, and creator of the ESL relationship method. Her mission is to help women get off the dating roller coaster, raise their self-worth, and affect the healthy relationship they've always wanted. She created the Empowered, Secured, Loved program because she knew women needed a clear path to secure attachment and love that lasts. With the science of attachment theory, data from hundreds of clients, and her own experiences, she created a program that transforms you from lonely to love. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is going to be such a great podcast. So Dr. Morgan, tell me a little bit about your story and how you got to be, I want to say, the love expert. You know, I'm frozen. You're like the love expert, but
Yeah, this is so fun for me. I rarely do interviews. I'm usually the one interviewing people. So I just appreciate getting to be here and tell my story. Um, so it all started for me, even at a young age. I witnessed my dad go through 4 marriages. He's actually on his 4th marriage and it's healthy and wonderful. But I just remember even at a young age, I was fascinated about, well, how do people make this work? Like, how do healthy romantic relationships work? Even from age 5, 6, 7, that question fascinated me. And then of course I had my own childhood trauma, things I went through that was very challenging growing up. I lost my mom at a young age. Went through all kinds of things that we go through, childhood neglect, etc. And it led me to being fascinated with healing and people who are survivors. And it led me to pursue clinical psychology. And I was pursuing my doctorate in clinical psychology. And I'm once again fascinated with relationships. Nobody else wanted to work with couples, like in the clinic that I was in. And I was like, me, I will take all the couples. And that's what I focused on, was how do we help people have great relationships? What happened is, of course, I'm busy helping people. I'm ignoring my own stuff. I have all this trauma, all these patterns I haven't healed. In my second year of my PhD program, I started dating a narcissist.
Mm.
I had no idea, right? The first 6 months were a whirlwind. It was like trips to everywhere and gifts, and I was being love bombed. And I thought this is the one, and we're gonna get married, etc. And a year and a half later, I hit complete rock bottom after experiencing about a year of emotional abuse. And it ultimately led to a situation that was pretty much like life or death for me, and a police report being filed. And I completely hit rock bottom.
Mm.
And I left that relationship after, having tried multiple times. And I committed once again to say, I will figure this out. Whatever it takes, I will figure out how do you have a healthy, great relationship. And I won't get in another relationship until I have an idea. And oddly enough, that's when I started really studying attachment theory. And of course, I threw myself into my own healing and therapy and coaching. And, here we are, probably about 8, 9 years later. I'm in an incredible relationship. Um, I don't know that we ever fully heal, but I am very healthy, functioning, securely attached, love my life, love myself. And I just want to help other women get to the place where they can avoid the pain, get off the dating roller coaster, and attract that relationship that they deserve.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have found too that the strongest and best way to be able to reach and help people is by living in your experience and helping people realize, hey, I've been there, but I am not there. Um, One of the things that I really love is when you talk about transforms you from lonely to love. I talk a lot about like the effects of loneliness on people, and divorce is one of those things where you are thrusted into loneliness.
Mhm.
When you're married or in a relationship, you always usually have people around you, and usually your significant other. And so all of a sudden you're separated or you're getting divorced, and you are all of a sudden have all this time where you are alone. And sometimes, we have kids, and my kids never leave me alone. I mean, I can't go to the bathroom without them yelling for me.
Mhm.
But then, you get divorced and they're with the other parent sometimes. And so loneliness is a really, what I would say, like a real emotion that you have to deal with. And so I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because I try to help people understand that the loneliness is something that you should jump into and learn to settle into it versus like seeing it as something bad. Because when you're lonely or you don't have anything else to take care of, that's the best time that you can be taking care of yourself. So I just wanted to hear like your opinions on that, and if there's things that you teach or that you coach on helping people embrace loneliness versus using it as like I don't know what to do.
Oh man, this is such a good question. So, when we have a habit of putting other people's needs before ours, and we have a habit of ignoring our internal experience, we definitely seek distractions, and we seek connections with others, and we have relationships and sometimes even hobbies or numbing, right? Like substances, etc. There's all these ways to distract from our internal experience and the relationship with ourselves. And what often happens, particularly if you're going through a divorce, you probably got to a point where, for survival reasons, you disconnected from your internal experience, because it was really painful to acknowledge that this thing that you had created, this relationship, was ending. So you probably really just disconnected from knowing what's going on. And then all of a sudden, you're on the other side of the divorce, and your kids are with your ex, and you're in a room by yourself, and it doesn't feel good. And what that says to me is you have to learn how to reconnect to your inner experience and really create that relationship with yourself so that it feels good and you enjoy that connection to yourself. And it's because it's uncomfortable, it's because you haven't done it in a long time that it just feels so painful.
Yeah. And women, especially, um, we are just, I guess, bred to care about everybody else, which is why women just absolutely suck at self-care, because we're taking care of everything else and putting our head down and not worrying about our own specific needs. So all of a sudden, you're getting a divorce or you're single and you're thinking, I have nobody to give anything to. And then the other thing is women, like, we feel like selfish, or like we feel bad if we want to do something for ourselves. So we've got this, like, tug of war going on. And so, but I agree with you, like, using it as power to understand what it is to connect and love yourself is so important. Um, so I love that. I want to know a little bit more. So talk a bit more about this ESL relationship method. What is it and how did you kind of develop it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this will be a good segue. Like when I was probably at my most like toxic dating patterns and unhealed and had a disorganized attachment style, I hated alone time. Like I understand that. I would do whatever I could to not be alone. And I just want to acknowledge that you may feel that way, and giving yourself compassion and just realizing like, hey, maybe that helped you at some point, but it is true that you can enjoy your alone time. I remember when I would hear people say that, I was like, that's not true. Like
Right.
that's just not possible. But now I'm sure you're this way too. I love alone time. I love to travel by myself. I love to go on a road trip by myself. I savor that time with just me because I healed that relationship with myself. So I think it's possible, but I know sometimes when you hear it, you're like, "What? Like that's not true. Like how do you enjoy
Right.
alone time?" But it totally is possible. Um, so about the program, empowered, secure, and loved. It is called that because that's how we all deserve to feel, and we especially deserve that in our relationships. And I created it because as a clinical psychologist, I would help people get awareness. So they'd have all this awareness about how they got to where they were, but then they wouldn't know what to do with the awareness and how to actually shift and get to where they wanted to be. And that's where I found coaching is so helpful, more of a directive approach. Um, the first part of the program is all about helping women let go of the past fully. Because you and I know if we don't do that, we can't make room for what's to come. So it's about fully releasing the past and then healing that relationship with yourself. That's our foundation in the program.
I love that.
Yeah.
Being empowered. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a researcher, but I definitely feel that through my experience as an attorney, and then now with my research of my book and doing things, what I've learned is that women, we struggle not only to empower ourselves, but empower others. Like we are our own worst enemy. And I always say, like, if women would just stand up together, then we would stop falling alone. There's so many times that women are just like screaming at the top of their lungs to be noticed or get promotions. And they feel like they have to tear down everybody else to get there. And I'm like, 50% of this company is women. If y'all just stood up and like supported each other, what is the company going to do? They're going to listen to you. Um, so I love that you are building this into a relationship model as well, because because like I said, so many women want to come into a relationship and they want to take care of that other person, when at the end we all know, like, you can't be happy in a relationship unless you're happy, unless you're fulfilled. And you know that better than anybody now, so you're preaching it from the, the
Yeah.
rooftops. So tell me, like, what do we need to do as women to get better at this?
Yeah, I'm going to say something. This is definitely going to hit some people. You have to disconnect your self-worth from your relationship status. And that is so socially ingrained in us as well. We learned that we had to be a good girlfriend and then wife and then mother, and then that's what defines our worth. But you have to get to a place where your self-worth is completely disconnected from your relationship status. And then to echo what you said, I say this a lot to my community. You have to realize a relationship cannot give you anything that you can't give yourself. When a great relationship comes in, it's simply a multiplier of whatever you feel. So you have to be able to feel loved and to feel love on your own. And then, sure, somebody can come in and they're just going to multiply that feeling. They're not going to create it for you if there's a void.
I love that. I say the same thing, but not as eloquently as you. Like, I always say that, you have to be happy in the marriage and then the marriage elevates it. But I think, anyways, I just think that that makes so much sense. And, we're always saying it, like I'm the biggest champion of women, but women have been my biggest, I would say, nemesis in my career. Like, I'm in a very, very male dominated field. You are actually, a little bit as well, but where you would think that the men have been the hardest and the thing that has been keeping me back from flourishing. And in all reality, it's actually been these women who just don't know how to connect. They don't understand how to properly support and teach and lead. And, I look at my past experiences and and when I talk about relationships, people know this about me. I talk about all kinds of relationship because, you don't need to just follow this in, your relationship with your spouse. Like, these are, really good tips to help you in every relationship in your, entire scope of who you are, which is only going to make you a better person. So don't don't think that you being empowered and loving is only in to a partner. I just don't believe that. It could be with your
Oh, yeah.
employer, it can be with your parents, it can be with your siblings, so it can help you in every kind of relationship and move you forward. Um, but
Yeah.
but just like to get to the point of that whole thing is this just like, I want women to hear that we can sit in our power and empower others. And
Mhm.
sometimes we just really are not good at that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. What an important point. And that is that, as women, sometimes we compare ourselves, right? And we get into this place where we think like, oh, they have it and I'm better than them. So why do they have it and I don't? And we get all this negative talk going on. Um, the most beautiful thing we can do is realize that it comes from a place of low self-worth when we're doing that. It's about our own worthiness. We're not standing in our power when we tear other people down. And what I really love about the community I have and just other amazing communities of women I've been a part of is this energy of when she wins, I get to celebrate her and I get to say, wow, if it's available for her and it's happening in this universe for a woman, that means it could also be available for me. It may look different, but hey, her success is amazing. And it's a sign that there's so much that's available to me too. Like, use it for inspiration and celebrate. That is such a better energy.
Oh man, yes. And what you give out, you get back. And it's just a ripple effect that
Yeah.
strengthens you. I kind of want to pivot for a second because you talked about how you've been in a narcissistic relationship, and I deal with a lot of high conflict personalities, a lot of borderlines, and a lot of narcissists. I get asked that probably once a day. Do you know what a narcissist is? Do you know what a covert
You're like,
narcissist is?
yes, I
I'm like,
do.
I'm like, yes, I wrote a whole chapter on it in my book.
Hey, there we go.
Um, but I wanted to just point out, because a lot of my listeners are going through divorce. I wanted to just point out what you said about narcissists is that when the good is good, it's amazing. Narcissists are the best at feeding on what you need and giving you so much, almost over the top of, whatever your love language is, to make you feel secure so that it's easy for them to break you down. And so when the good's good, it's great. And when it's bad, it's bad. And I'm really proud of you, Morgan, for getting out of that relationship in a year. But I can't tell you how many divorces I've done, and they stayed in for 15, 20
Oh,
years. They had kids, and they're like, I knew he was this when, or I knew she was this, year one. And I'm like, well, why did you stay in it? And they're like, always like, because the good was good. And when we were good,
yeah.
we were good. And then the bad was really bad. And anyways, I just wanted to point that out because I thought that it's a very, very typical pattern of people with these personality disorders.
Yeah. And I think, I'm grateful, and it's so funny to say this, but I mean, I'm grateful it got as bad as it did, as quickly as it did. Where it really was like it was just life or death for me.
Mm.
So, and I know that sounds terrible, but it's like it did end up saving me a lot of time of being in that relationship. So I do have gratitude for that. And then also just for it's the thing that got me into therapy and got me to heal. So I'm able to have gratitude now. But what I want to say about those relationships in clinical psychology, we study psychology of learning, right? And we talk about intermittent reinforcement. Being in a relationship with a narcissist is the same psychology around why people get addicted to gambling, because it is that intermittent reinforcement. And in gambling, right, like you'll try, you'll lose, you'll try, you'll lose, and then you'll hit the jackpot. That's exactly what happens in a relationship with a narcissist. And that's why when we look at brain scans, it's very similar. People become addicted in those relationships. So it really is hard. It is hard to leave. And I just want to normalize that. But the biggest thing, you and I know this, get support, get into therapy, talk to people. It's so easy to become isolated in those relationships. But if you need to leave, build your support first and you can get out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what are your tips for people that are sitting in those kind of relationships? Absolutely right. Like, you don't have to stay in it. I don't care if you've been married for 15 years or you've been dating for 6 months. Like, you have the choice to leave. You are strong enough to do that. And I know you're going to be okay. You know, is it going to be necessarily easy? No, but it's okay. You can get through it. You will be better for it. And, people like me, like Morgan, we can, listen to all of the stuff that we've talked about. And I'm sure you've talked a lot about it on your podcast as well, to really help you understand, like, what are the steps to get out of it. So I was interested. So, what is attachment theory?
Yeah, attachment theory. So when after I had that scenario, I got out of the relationship, I'm in my clinical psych program. We're looking at child psychology. And I remember one brief moment in class, they mentioned attachment theory.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, what is that? And that led to the 10-year rabbit hole now that I've been on of just researching and learning all I can. And what happened for me is once I understood it, it really gave me awareness into why I was doing what I was doing in my dating life and why I was attracted to who I was attracted to. So I'm happy to give you just like a very quick summary so your audience like gets an idea of the basics.
I love it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, um, attachment theory is the understanding of like why we show up the way that we show up in our relationships and why we do the things we do to get our needs met. Um, and it's broken down into four different ways of being in relationships, aka attachment styles. So the four attachment styles are anxiously attached, avoidantly attached, disorganized attachment, or securely attached. And once you start to realize what your attachment style is, it'll make a ton of sense. You'll have light bulbs going off. I actually do have a quiz. I'm like, if you want to know like what yours is, I have a quiz and the link in my Instagram bio. It's at Dr. Morgan Coaching. That quiz is helpful. Um, but let's break them down. Should we do the styles
Sure. I love it.
if we have time? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anxious attachment is where you have prioritized the relationship needs above your own, and you have fear of abandonment, and you have a preoccupation with the relationship ending. This is the person who might send 17 text messages, or they might be counting down the minutes, waiting for that reply. And they have that fear that maybe their partner's cheating or their partner's going to leave them. It's that anxious attachment with the relationship, right? Avoidant attachment is where you have high needs for independence. And at some point, you learned it wasn't safe for you to depend on someone else. So you've developed hyper self reliance.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not really good at showing up. This is the guy that you went on a great date and it was amazing and you had a wonderful time. You thought you really connected, and then he doesn't call you for 3 weeks because it got too close. There's too much intimacy. And that is really scary for someone with avoidant attachment. A disorganized attachment style is this wonderful combination of both anxious and avoidant. It's horribly exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, you start out avoidant and then end up feeling anxious, or vice versa. Um, Fun fact, I think Gabby on The Bachelorette would have a disorganized attachment style for those of you watching The Bachelorette. But yeah, really painful where you have both strategies available, and you're going to flip a lot. And then securely attached is where we all want to be, where my needs are important, my partner's needs are important. I can communicate well, I can set boundaries, and I know that my worth is not dependent on my relationship status. And I can co-create a securely attached relationship with a partner who wants to emotionally invest in me, and I want to emotionally invest in them. That's where we all want to be.
All want to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what's crazy is I've been married for almost 16 years now. And I would say that we are that most of the time. But sometimes we fall back into a rut and we're not like in this situation where we're listening to each other, connecting to each other. And so it's marriage is continual work. Like relationship building
Yeah.
is continual work. And I would say majority of the work is done on your side. You know, you doing the work to make sure that you're, you know, satisfied, you're filling you're filling your cup, I guess. And then it gives you the power to be able to, like I said, elevate your marriage. So but it's a
Yeah.
continual process.
It is. And I think knowing about these attachment styles just gives you a deeper awareness of understanding dynamics in a marriage. And what I actually love about the quiz I created is it has percentages. So a lot of the quizzes out there will be like, oh, you are anxiously attached.
Yeah.
Mine will say, oh, you're like 75% secure and 25 anxious. And that's the reality. We all have a spectrum of all of the attachment styles. It's just which one are you spending the most time in?
Right.
Um, and then once you realize that, you just work to spend more and more time in a securely attached place. It gets easier.
Yeah. Makes sense. So what would be, I guess, how do you help successful women who are very independent, who are very, set in their um in who they are? How do you help them get relationships?
I love that you asked this. So I was that person. So that's why I'm really good at helping women who are that way. Um, when you are, Miss Independent and you have this ability to completely take care of yourself, relationships are not a practical choice. They become an emotional choice and actually a desire and a want and not a need. And that's the era that we're in now, which is beautiful. But what it requires is that you get to a place where relationships are emotionally safe and relationships add value to your life. And for a lot of women, we don't feel that relationships are emotionally safe. And unconsciously, we believe that we need to be afraid of intimacy. So we have connected intimacy with danger. So we're unable to deepen connections and to do it in an emotionally safe way. So
Mm-hmm.
we run from relationships. So I help women rewire their brains around that, let go of their past, and then learn to embody the version of them that can welcome in love.
I love that. Yeah, I remember in my marriage when I was young and I was rising in my career, and my husband was in medical school, and I remember him just looking at me being like, "Can you like stop being a boss? Stop being an attorney for just a minute and be my husband?" And I was like, "What do you mean? This is me." And what I realized is
Yeah.
that I was like, I had such a thick wall of like you weren't seeing my vulnerable side. Nope, and I realized that that was hurting our relationship because my husband needed that. He needed to know in his relationship that I was actually there, um, and needed him. Even though that, when I say that out loud, I laugh because I'm like, do I need him? But I do need him, but it's in a different way of needing him because he is like my biggest cheerleader and he is there to, you know, really, really support me in everything I'm doing. So I know it's possible.
Yeah, it is. It
Ladies,
absolutely.
it's possible.
Yeah, and yeah, you get to this place where you realize it's gonna be really beneficial to you if you can learn how to let somebody in and learn how to let somebody support you. And that's what we're designed to have as humans. Like we actually need each other. We need connection.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes everything better. I mean, it really does. Um, Men and women were not meant to be alone. We are a species that was made to have connection with other species, other people. And so it's not bad, ladies. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could talk about masculine, feminine energy. Your masculine energy is going to serve you so well in your career and, being able to do well in higher education, etc. But in your relationship, you have to be able to step into feminine energy. I also coach on that of how do we learn how to switch into that and what does that look like? It's just something that's not talked about enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's really good. And I think it still comes with, America is still very, very a patriarchal society. We were bred on that. Like we're still stuck in this, like, where gender roles in America were defined clear back when America started. And we are still like trying to figure out, like,
Yeah.
the fact that we actually don't necessarily have to have roles. Like men can cry and have feelings, and men can be stay-at-home dads, and that's okay. And women can work and can choose not to have children or choose to work and have children, and that's okay. Women can be successful leaders and be moms. I mean, we're still just like stuck in this, like, but for years and years I was supposed to be the hunter, and I was supposed to kill food for you, and you were supposed to, and we're just like stuck in this, like,
Yeah.
how do I define what I'm supposed to do as a female or a male? And I'm like, we got to get out of that because
Yeah.
it's not okay. And it's okay for us to be not defined. Like we don't have to have specific, you know, in the box of what we are supposed to do as women. And it's interesting that the rest of the world seems to be catching up to that, but for some reason America's just not.
Yeah. And you know what I would say about this is that one of the reasons is emotional intelligence just needs to catch up, and that really with emotional safety, with the ability to truly be vulnerable and express how we really feel, that's what helps with this shift. Because think about it, as women, we're not going to be vulnerable, we're not going to ask for what we need, we're not going to be able to receive love very well if we don't feel emotionally safe. And same for men. Men aren't going to be able to be vulnerable, be real about what they need, cry with their partners if they don't feel emotionally safe. So that's really the growing edge, I would say, for our society, is how do we create open, honest, direct communication and emotional safety with one another? That really helps with the shift.
Yeah. And it's not easy because to be able to do that, you have to be vulnerable. And Brene Brown says it best when she's like, vulnerability sucks. I mean, it's just, it opens up the ability for people to beat you and you to feel it. Right.
Yeah.
So, but it does lead to you being your true, authentic self to be able to get to this position of, love and acceptance and pure joy is what I would say. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just working on some copy today, and I wrote out the hottest thing is knowing who you are and showing up every day as you in the world. Like that is the hottest thing in the world. And I think we have to realize this, that when we are our true selves and we are vulnerable, that's when people are most drawn to us. As humans, we love integrity, we love honesty, and we love the people who are radically themselves. So we have to be reminded of that in our relationships. And for me, it's like finding my partner, developing the relationship we have a space where we are both radically ourselves and we are big weirdos together and we just are completely who we are.
Yeah.
And we love each other, and that is truly the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's amazing. And like we said, it continually is with the best relationships are when you're both working on you and then you're able to be vulnerable and perceptive to the needs of the other person. I mean, understanding love languages is really, really important. And then being willing to do that love language. I mean, my husband his love language is words of affirmation, which for a strong woman who wants people to just do their job well, and I don't want to have to tell them to do their job well, it's hard for me. But I sit back and think he needs that validation from me, not all the time, but he needs me to be aware of what he's doing for our family, what he's doing for me, and he needs to hear it because that gives him those endorphins, and that gives him the ability to be vulnerable and realize that I'm emotionally present to be connected with him. So it's a work in progress, but
I love
I'm
it.
I'm dedicated to it.
I love it. And I guess maybe even just full circle to what we talked about earlier, you talked about you have to take care of you. And I like to say joy is your job. Like your joy is your job. And I also have a book coming out, so I'll be joining you
That's
as an
amazing.
offer.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's called Love Magnet. Get off the dating roller coaster and attract the love you deserve. But chapter 3, Jill, is Ferrari maintenance.
Yeah.
And I called it that because I want everyone to know you are a Ferrari, you're not a Prius. You require maintenance. And it's all about what are your daily things that you do to fill up your cup, to find your joy, to really make sure that you are well taken care of, because we can't give our partner the love language that they need if our cup isn't full, if we haven't been well taken care of, we're not going to want to show up and do the words of affirmation or do the acts of service. So that's why it is so foundational. Your joy is your job. You have to take care of you first.
I love that. Morgan, you've been just absolutely amazing. I want people to know where to find you and like this book. When is it coming out? Tell us all the details so my listeners can find you.
Yeah, I would love to connect with anyone who resonated with us today. The best place is Instagram. It's Dr. Morgan Coaching, Dr. Morgan Coaching on IG. And then I also have a podcast called Let's Get Vulnerable. A lot about attachment theory, dating, communication, etc. And then the book, yes, I wrote a book. It's still like not real to me. I'm sure you can relate to that. Like I haven't held it in my hands yet. So I think once I hold it, it'll be real. But it should be coming out in November, and I'll be posting on my Instagram with all the information. But yeah, love magnet, get off the dating roller coaster and attract the love you deserve.
I love that. Congratulations. Yeah, it's not easy. Everybody is like, oh, everybody's written a book. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still hard. So
it is so hard.
Yeah, that's a great accomplishment. So congratulations for all your success. And everybody out there, remember, you are worthy of happiness, joy, love, empowerment. You are deserving of that. And whatever space you feel right now, whether it's lonely, whether it's sadness, know that this is just a fleeting moment and sit back in it and recognize that one step forward can get you to progression, to become the person that you are deserving of being. So breathe. And remember, you are loved. And we're here every week to remind you of that. No one dies from divorce. You're going to be okay. Thank you, Dr. Morgan, for being here. It was such a great honor to meet you and to see what you're doing. And I'm excited for your future.
Jill, thank you for having me, and just so much gratitude for all the work you're doing in the world and helping people keep on serving these people. And wow, it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No one dies from divorce. Catch us next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.